Welcome to Eerie Essex. I'm Bethan Briggs-Miller.
And I'm Ailsa Clark.
Thank you for joining us on our journey into the strange side of the county.
We will be exploring the folklore, urban legends and supernatural encounters that form part of its rich history. Welcome to episode 15, all about buried treasure. Before we jump into the stories, we completely breezed past on the last episode that it was our 1-year anniversary.
Yay! Yeah, that went quick that year.
It did. I can't believe we've been doing this for a full year.
Yeah, thank you for letting us stick around.
I don't know about you, Bethan, but cliche that I am, I didn't know so many people were going to listen. We hit over 7,000 downloads. I just thought a few friends and family would listen.
And only because they were friends and family and they were just doing it to go, oh, there you go.
I mean, 7,000 is minor leagues for other podcasts, but for us, it's astounding. So thank you so much. We can't thank you enough for all the interest you've had in what we've had to say.
Yeah. And we know we're building a lovely Patreon following. We are planning some extras for our Patreon followers. As I say, this side project, Eerie Essex on the Road, is taking up a bit of time, but trust us, it'll be worth it.
It's going to be good. It's going to be fun.
And we've made a good friend at the castle, Ben.
Oh, lovely Ben Pates.
Lovely Ben Pates. So we're coming up with some ideas for other things as well. So there's lots of things bubbling away in the background.
Now, buried treasure. This was Bethan's pick, an attempt to manifest some wealth, seeing that Bethan seems to have synchronistic, weird encounters after researching every episode. I myself have had a few, but not as many as Bethan.
Yeah, I'm hoping to find some buried treasure.
Yeah, we thought, why not use that to pay our electricity bill? So after this, I'm off to buy a lottery ticket.
Oh, I'm off to do anything. We're recording this the day after that announcement, so we're a bit don't know what to do.
Yeah. So. Anyway, if you didn't know already, Essex is one of the country's hotspots for finding buried treasure. I think we're number 3.
We're behind Norfolk and somewhere else.
Is it Cambridge?
Yes.
So from coin hoards to Roman and Saxon and medieval jewellery, we're simply rolling in it.
We are rolling.
Not all of it has an eerie tale, mind you, though one of the main reasons we find so many Roman coin hoards is to do with Boudicca's trail of destruction across Essex. Just like Samuel Pepys burying his cheese whilst London burned, Romans in Essex saw the cloud of dust on the horizon from Boudicca's army and grabbed their shovels. The fact that they were discovered so many centuries later probably means they weren't able to come back and dig it up again. And Bethan's got some interesting facts about metal detecting folklore for us.
I do. Well, actually, before I dive into the folklore, just as you said about Romans seeing the dust cloud on the horizon, just thought I'd start with a little bit about the Fenwick treasure.
Yes, go ahead.
So for people who don't know Colchester well, there's the Fenwick store, which used to be Willie G's. I still call it that. Can't get used to Fenwick. But when they were refurbing it, weren't they? And they were digging down into the foundations and they came across on the last day, this is what Ben told us, it was a real chance find that when they were sinking a lift shaft further down, somebody just happened to spot a slight sparkle of gold at the corner of their eye. And I've actually got the extract from the site director's dig diary. So it's quite exciting, that you can sense the excitement in it. So I'll read it as it is because it's just so lovely. Day 94. Gold!
In the Big Brother house.
Day 94. Today I had the good fortune to uncover a collection of gold and silver jewellery. It was buried beneath the floor of a Roman building destroyed during the Boudiccan fire. The jewellery appears to have been tightly packed into a very small pit and then covered over. It was the same room that contained the burnt piece of furniture and burnt foodstuffs. I thought it said footstuffs.
They were
The
into
jewelry
quick
had probably,
stuffs.
yeah, the jewelry had probably been buried for safekeeping during the early stages of the revolt and then became covered over by the remains of the collapsed building. It is a remarkable piece of good fortune that the jewellery had not been found before, as Roman foundation trenches, a medieval lime pit, and a modern sewerage pipe had all been excavated within a metre of the jewellery. So it missed it by not much at all.
Wow.
And at least 3 people over the last 1,954 years had come within an arm's reach of discovering it.
That's like real synchronicity then, isn't it? Just being that last day of the dig.
Literally the last day. They were about to cover it over, weren't they?
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, how many other little pockets of treasure around Colchester?
They're probably all over the place. I mean, considering that there's a layer under all of Colchester. I know I've mentioned this before, but it runs under all of Colchester where Boudicca basically burnt everything to the ground. Mm-hmm. So we don't know what could be there. I mean, we don't know what's been picked up by the people who came after the Romans either, because obviously a lot of the Roman brick was robbed to build some of the newer buildings. When you say newer, they're probably most of them are Norman, but
yeah.
And gold doesn't tarnish. So that would be why it was still sparkling, why they picked up that little bit of sparkle.
Yeah. It's just incredible. It just makes me, I always have, I think every time I watch The Detectorists, which is a wonderful program if you haven't watched it on BBC, I find myself looking at the ground a bit more, just in case, especially where we live. It's my mother-in-law, actually, Pam, if you're listening. She once found is it Vineyard Street car park?
Yes.
She saw something on the floor, didn't quite know what it was, and was in a rush. So she thought, oh, cool, what's that? She thought it was a button, like a cool button. And she likes buttons. She had, like we all do. We always have a little pot of buttons, like unusual ones. So she put it in there. And when she started to clean it up, it looked really unusual. And she sort of just hung on to it. And they have one of those printer's trays.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw it in there one day. I was like, what's that? And she told me. And I'm pretty sure it's Roman.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah.
And it was just in the car park in Vineyard Street.
Yeah, it's just when they had literally resurfaced it.
Oh, right. And there is the Roman wall does run along that area.
Yeah. But the annoying thing is, straight after we had that conversation, they stopped having that open forum sort of thing where you could bring things to the castle.
Oh, right. I didn't know they'd stopped doing that.
Yeah. But I don't know where to take it. If anyone's listening that knows where to take treasure.
Ben will know.
Also, the Fines Liaison people.
Yeah, the Fines Liaison people.
Okay. Ben will know, yeah. And he's probably listening to this, so Ben, expect an email. So, yeah, I just wanted to start with that because it just shows that it's not always in the middle of a field. It's not always in like a ruin. You can find something. It can be anywhere. There's history underneath us everywhere.
Yeah, the only thing I've ever found, I went metal detecting once and all I ever found was some old farm equipment. So I've obviously not got the luck that your mother-in-law has.
I mean, I'll probably drop these in throughout the episode, but you said you found old farm equipment. I know that's, again, this is off Detectorists, so I don't know how accurate it is, but I know Mackenzie Crook researched a lot of it and they have sort of abbreviations for a lot of things you can find. So what do you think boat is?
Little straw boater hats? No, you wouldn't find that metals detectoring. No idea. A bit of a tractor.
So it's quite a rich other language or something. And I'll tell them to you later, but I found a forum where people are swapping their superstitions. So we have got an element of eerie. Do you want to go into one of yours and we'll just swap back into?
Yeah, sure. My first one may be a little long. The prize for this episode's best nickname goes to our next villain, the infamous Bloody Bonner. I have to say it like that.
Bloody Bonner.
Bloody Bonner.
What did he get up to?
Oh, he got up to a lot. So, Bloody Bonner, otherwise known as Edmund Bonner, was Bishop of London under Mary I in the 1500s. Bonner seems to have been one of those people who likes to flop back and forth between being an utter toady to whoever's holding the reins of power or a thorn in their side. Under Henry VIII, he was Cromwell's man, supporting the schism from Rome and trying heretics who didn't sign the oath of supremacy. But during Edward IV's short reign, he seems to have spent most of his time resisting visitation, neglecting to enforce the Act of Uniformity and the Common Book of Prayer, which landed him in jail. However, it was in Mary I's reign that he really made his name. Catholicism and the return of the papacy saw Bonner become one of the lead persecutors of those still following the Protestant faith. He was accused of excessive cruelty in many of his cases. Fox, a contemporary of Bonner's, described him in his Book of Martyrs with the following verse, and this is a wonderful little verse. You can really tell the kind of sentiment this man had at the time. Muse not much at nature's work, is thus deformed now, with belly blown and head so swollen, for I shall tell you how. This cannibal in 3 years' space 300 martyrs slew. They were his food, he loved so blood, he spared none he knew. It should appear that blood feeds fat, if men lie well and soft, for Bonner's belly waxed with blood, though he seemed to fast off. O bloody beast, bewail the death of those thou hast slain. In time repent, since thou cannot their lives restore again. You might have to edit that little gap in the middle of scrolling.
That's okay. That's a good description.
Yeah, so you can really tell that he was a not well-liked man.
Yeah, they didn't spare him much there.
There's also a lovely little woodcut from Fox's book, which I'll be sure to post to Instagram, of Bonner punishing a heretic with his pants down. The heretic's pants, not Bonner's.
Right, okay.
So,
I'm glad you explained that.
Yeah, look forward to seeing that later. Bonner had his supporters, though. Some said he was simply doing what he was instructed to do by the Crown. He was an official who had no control over the fate of those who were accused. And well, look at how history goes for those sorts of people. Others said he was the one who made it part of his official role to persecute heretics. Now, we've mentioned Ben several times already, but Ben, in our previous episode at Colchester Castle, mentioned at this time heresy was punishable by burning. So everyone accused and found guilty was sure to find themselves in the pyre at some point, which is a truly awful fate. But how does Bonner relate to Essex, you say? Well, part of the Bishop of London's holdings include Copford Manor. He also had the right of recommending the appointment of vacancies at the nearby church, which was St Mary's at the time. It's now known as St Michael's and All Angels Church. Sidebar, if you ever happen to be near Copford, you should definitely visit the Church of St Michael's and All Angels.
It's gorgeous.
No matter what your beliefs, faiths, or misgivings about organised religion, it's well worth a look. The church dates itself back to the Norman period and is decorated with some really beautiful original Romanesque frescoes. They were painted over by zealous Protestants at one point, but they've been painstakingly restored. And I haven't seen anything like it outside of Italy. The church also has an interesting and bloody tale. Apparently some Danes had tried raiding the church at one point. When we say Danes, it means Vikings. But they were slaughtered and their skins were used to cover the north door of the church. So fragments of this Dane skin can still be found at the castle today. At Colchester Castle, they have it on display. So there's an account from 1710 which reads, "The doors of this church are much adorned with flourished ironwork. Underneath, which is a sort of skin taken notice in the year 1690, when an old man at Colchester, hearing Copford mentioned, said that in his young time he heard his master say that he had read in an old history that the church of Copford was robbed by the Danes and their skins nailed to the doors, upon which some gentlemen, being curious, went thither, and found a sort of tan skin, thicker than parchment, which is supposed to be human skin nailed to the door of the church, which was underneath the ironwork. Though this is more likely to be animal skin. There are quite a few church doors which have the tale of being covered in the skin of the Vikings who have laid sack to these places. But most of the ones they've tested have turned out to be pig or cow skin. So back to Bonner. You can't go around beating and burning people without it coming back to haunt you. And it seems Bonner was ready for it, because according to local legend, he had built a tunnel between Copford Manor and the church through which he could escape. Sometime around the 1540s, Bonner became so paranoid he apparently took some of his valuables, including the church plates and some other, minor treasures. You know how they like their jewels, the papacy.
Mm-hmm.
And he took these into the tunnel, fearing that reformers were coming for him. There's also a rumor he actually split the treasure between the tunnel and a nearby burial mound.
A tunnel.
Yes, it's a tunnel, Bethan.
There's a lot of tunnels in this
There's
episode.
a tunnel. Now, Bonner somehow managed to keep going until 1561, when he was imprisoned for refusing to take the oath of supremacy to Queen Elizabeth I and not enforcing the Act of Uniformity. He was imprisoned at Marshalsea, where he died, and he was buried in Southwark. The mound was excavated in the 19th century and nothing was found, and the tunnel is yet to be discovered. So Bloody Bonner's treasure, if it does exist, remains lost to this day. And apparently Bloody Bonner doesn't remember where he put it himself, since his ghost has apparently been seen wandering around the church, still looking for it. And he's recognisable to people since he's wearing his bishop's cap and gown. During the 20th century, a cleaner reported hearing footsteps and the movement of books in the empty church. And then there's this other one from a Mr. Morris of Chelmsford, who told of a woman he knew who claimed that she often heard footsteps walking up the aisle, banging on the pulpit doors, slamming when she was the only one in the building. And an organ tuner was telling his assistant the story of the spectre of Bishop Bonner. And when the lad laughed, several old books that hadn't been moved in years suddenly tumbled from the shelf to the floor. So death certainly hasn't changed Bloody Bonner's bad attitude.
No, that's a good story.
Oh, interestingly, Bonner was secretly buried at Southwark, but years later, they actually uncovered his grave at Copford. Mm-hmm. So he'd been in the middle of the night taken out of Southwark and then buried under I think they said it was under the eaves at Copford.
Oh, so he's buried at Copford.
Yes.
Is he still there?
Apparently. But he was so reviled that they thought his grave would probably be desecrated at some point anyway.
I've heard the name Bonner around here.
Yeah, there are quite a few places that are named after him. And there's he has a palace at Fulham as well, which he apparently haunts there too. So maybe he thinks he put the church plate there. I don't know.
Interesting. I'd love to come across something like that. You know, have you ever seen anything like, they do it a lot in American sort of paranormal stuff when they're investigating, they do that ground penetrating radar from the sky?
Oh, right. No, but I know what geophys is. I've used to
probably it, yeah.
do it from there. Yeah.
But, you know, I'd love to have that technology and just go around and see.
I like it when they just kind of have an attic they didn't even know was there. Like, how do you not know you have an attic? And then they find
like it's been untouched.
Yeah, I suppose apart from the place I'm living in now, which is actually an attic.
Yeah.
I've never been somewhere that's like been big enough to not notice another level.
Yeah, I think if you can't notice a room in your house, mind you, I won't give any details because I know the person wouldn't want this on there, but I know someone whose parents have a house that has a room that's got a little window into it, but they've never been in it. There's no door, but there's a little window, and it's a fair-sized little room.
They can't open the window and get in.
Well, if you had, and this is an old house. I'm talking beams, and it's leaning to one side, and they had frescoes on the wall. You know, is it in Essex now?
Oh wow!
Yeah, they also found I think child skeleton in the wall. Is it a baby? Yeah. They didn't want to tell the story, so I won't say who it is, but I wish they could have come on and told the story. But
I mean, that is an old practice. It's a little bit like burying the shoes, or in the wall, or the cat.
Yeah, I think it was exorcised at one point.
Christ!
But again, if I had a little room, I'd be far too curious.
Oh yeah, I would have, got on a crowbar and got in there immediately.
I know there could be all sorts of treasure in there, or interesting things.
I'd probably be a bit nervous if there'd been a child's body in the wall.
So Charlie added some sound effects there.
Yes, that's not a child on the wall. That's a child on the other side of the door.
Yeah, who wants something, but we can't figure out what, obviously. I'll do 2 stories next because they're quite small, but interesting.
Go ahead.
Have you heard of the Golden Cross at Ashington?
No, I haven't.
So there used to be a preaching cross that was on the junction of Rectory Road and Ashington Road. in the village that got its name, Golden Cross. And it was called after one Gilbert de Goldhoard. That's a good name, isn't it?
That is, what do they call it when your name reflects what you do?
Oh,
Nominative determinism.
there you go. I think he got the name after. I don't think he was named it and then he happened to get a hoard of treasure.
Damn it.
Well, I don't know. But this Golden Cross place was named after him, and he was named after a hoard of treasure found there. So it's already been found, but I like the way the names matched, as you say.
Nominative determinism. It's one of my favourite things to say. That and oubliettes.
Oh, oubliettes.
Bloody bonheur.
Onomatopoeia. Just before I carry on, I'm sure Elsa would agree with me that we got a lot of information off Hidden East Anglia, because that is a fantastic website. If you want to know more about a specific village or a specific subject, they are fab. And they've even got copies of the Lantern, which Essex appears in now and again, but it's mainly Norfolk and Suffolk. But it's a really great wealth of knowledge.
Yeah, it's a great place to start a research as well, because they condense things for, the average reader. But obviously then we've got to expand it for the podcast.
Yeah. That little bit that I got there was from Terry Johnson's book, Hidden Heritage, Discovering Ancient Essex. So that has gone straight onto my wish list. I'm going to be searching eBay for that one, which would be good. And then got Great Chesterford, Silver in the Tunnel. A tunnel. Yeah.
You love them tunnels.
I do. Well, there's a secret tunnel that ran from the Crown House Hotel to the Old Vicarage. The Old Vicarage and churches in general seem to be involved a lot with hidden tunnels for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was also connected to All Saints Church. And legend says that hidden in the tunnels are the church's silver bells. And they were hidden there to hide them from the Roundheads. And they've never been found. There are traces of the tunnel, but they haven't found the whole thing. So anyone living there, there's silver bells up for grabs. Don't go digging in people's gardens, though. Yeah, we're not condoning trespassing.
We should probably talk about the Treasure Act, actually.
I think that would be a good one to discuss, yes. So I have got the definition of what treasure is and what can happen if you are a bit naughty when trying to find treasure. So treasure is defined by law as any metallic object other than a coin that is at least 10% made up of a precious metal. So we're talking gold or silver, and more than 300 years old. So 2 or more coins from the same find, provided they're at least 300 years old and contain that percentage, are counted as treasure. There are very, very heavy fines and, in some cases, jail sentences for those who trespass or lie about where they found the treasure. So if you find treasure on common land, then it's pretty much up for grabs, but you still have to declare it to the coroner. And then they will be involved with the fines liaison officer. The fines liaison officers for Essex are at Colchester. And then they will go through the processes of who, if the museums want to get involved, if the person wants to sell it. If it is found on land, say like a farmland, then it must be declared, and the whatever comes from it is split with a landowner. Do you know anything about treasure trove?
I only remember bits and pieces from when I worked in the museums.
There is an unlimited fine and up to 3 months in prison for people who don't. And there was actually a former policeman who was recently jailed for 16 months after not only lying about where his coins came from, but for selling them on. So it's a very serious thing to enact in any dodgy capacity.
Apparently, and I'm just looking at this here, is that the Treasure Trove Act is no longer enforced.
Oh, well, it must be replaced by the common land and own land.
But Ben did tell us an interesting story about someone who was metal detectoring and found, so was it one coin or was it several coins or a hoard that he found?
Yeah.
And this relates into the metal detecting folklore that he was in a site where he was allowed to be detectoring. And a little way away, he saw a kestrel fly overhead and then land on a spot. And he took that as
Yeah.
a sign that he should dig there. So what does he do? He goes over to the part of the land he's not meant to be in and digs and finds treasure, and then uses the kestrel as an excuse as to why he was digging there.
Yeah. Do we believe him? Oh, there are some quite funny stories. I think there was one I read. This guy was detecting and he got quite a strong signal. And he dug and he dug and he dug and he kept getting this strong signal. He wasn't finding it in there. And after getting I saw a picture of him. He was up to it was above his head, this hole he dug. And it was the steel cap toes in his shoes.
Oh my goodness.
And that's quite embarrassing.
Why would you tell people that you did that?
I know, you sort of fill the hole in and keep stum, wouldn't you?
Yeah, or just be like, that is too embarrassing to ever share.
Well, and actually I think in Essex, someone found what they thought was this amazing this pot of gold coins. But it was leftover props from detectorists. Which, to be fair, is still a cool find. I mean, to collectors, that's probably still not quite the same as Roman, but...
I wonder if on the show they were meant to find it and they were just like, we can't remember where we've put this.
Yeah. Well, that's my little ones.
Did you want to go into the folklore around metal detectoring?
I could, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let me find it here. Okay, so there's this really lovely website called Metal Detecting Forum, and just above it is written friendly in handwriting, friendly metal detecting forum. And it's people swapping superstitions on this particular thread, superstitions and traditions that they do when they go out with their metal detector. And a lot of people have said they prefer to carry their detector in their left hand and then swing with it with their right. So they're ready to leap into action if they hit a target, which I wonder...
It's not going to move.
I know, it's not going anywhere. I don't think you need to leap to...
Do you think a really fast worm is just going to burrow through it and then drag it all along with it?
Or a kestrel, apparently. They don't get a diggable target until they return it to the sheath on their belt. A lot of people name their detectors. That seems to be a very big part of it. Someone here has got 4-leaf clover taped to the front of theirs. They're very superstitious, a bit like me. Not decrying it. I'm superstitious.
Didn't realise it was such a superstitious occupation.
It really is. Well, I suppose if you're there for so long and you invest so much time into it, you'll use you'll look for any signs.
Bit like football supporters.
Someone says as soon as they turn a detector on, they have to go for a wee. And literally as soon as it's turned on.
That could be anything. That could be something to do with the sound, the magnetism.
Yeah. Someone always puts their left shoe on first.
What, just all the time
before they go out detecting?
Okay. They like the left, don't they?
They do like the left. Oh God, I've got a link onto another forum now. Oh, I haven't got permission. Oh no, it's the secret inner circle of the detectorists. They're going to come after me. Someone had a shirt with a number 13 on. That actually good luck. Gridding sites so they can, really map it out.
That's normal, isn't it?
And mostly the first find of the day is the best you'll have. I love it. Some of them are really... Someone always carries amethyst in their left pocket. Again, left. Yeah, I'll be here all night. But yeah, if you want to have a look at them, Metal Detecting Forum, which is... I love stuff like that. I like things that are happening now. It's nice looking at ancient ones and myths and legends, but when it's little folk tales and folk practices and superstitions and traditions that are happening right now, it feels like it's still alive, that part of the community.
Yeah, I mean, it's even more modern than that. It's like the taking superstitions from a bygone time and applying them to something that is happening now, like football.
Yeah, what else has got a superstition around it?
Theatres.
We did talk a lot about theatres. Yeah, again, it's something where time is invested. It can all go wrong.
Yes,
or you might get no payout. So you look for signs and look for omens. So yeah, I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna spend all night tonight on that forum.
I know you will.
You know I will.
Because you'll probably message me at 3:00 in the morning and going, oh, look what I found.
Yeah, sorry, I probably will. Oh, I got an extra little tiny one. Great Lees, there's a priory treasure. I found quite a lot of, they didn't have a big story around them, but there's a lot of priories and monasteries that it's assumed there's treasure there because of the Reformation and things, that things would have been buried to go back to. So there's a rumour in Great Lees that all the treasures of the priory were thrown into the nearby lake.
As you do.
As you do. And that was from News from the Greens in Felsted Focus, October 2020. So just a little nugget, but it makes you want to go out, doesn't it? It's like, there's treasure out there, Elsa.
I think my back hurts too much for that. Like,
Then we send someone else out.
And if anyone would like to apply to be the official Eerie Essex treasure hunter, please say no, don't.
Yeah, please. This could be quite fun.
Well,
hand over to you now. I've talked rubbish enough.
So my next story is about Pleshy and Pleshy Castle, which, if you go looking for it, you're not going to find, because all that is left of Pleshy Castle now are the massive earthworks that the castle and its wards stood on. But it was once the seat of the Earl of Hereford and Essex. Now, there is a lot of history regarding Pleshy Castle, and thanks to the nobles basically all having the same names, I gave myself quite a headache trying to look into this. But some interesting episodes at the castle include Geoffrey de Mandeville II playing King Stephen and Queen Matilda off against each other until he was besieged by King Stephen and met his death at Burwell Castle in September 1144 because of an arrow wound during the skirmish. And he died in excommunicate. And this was because he was excommunicated when Matilda failed and Stephen took power, and Stephen figured out that he had been playing both sides. The Geoffrey de Mandeville became a rebel and basically a robber baron, and he would go around sacking churches and causing all kinds of trouble. So the Pope excommunicated him. So when he died, he wasn't allowed to be buried at the monastery he founded at Walden Priory. So his coffin wrapped in lead was accepted by a Templar community in London within the Temple Church. Some sources say that he was buried in the church. Other sources say that his coffin hung from a crooked tree in the Templar orchard for 20 years before he was allowed to be buried. Then we have, yeah, that's interesting. I was just like, how do you hang a coffin? Isn't that just really?
I thought it just hung the body.
No, it was the whole coffin was hung from the tree, a crooked tree in the orchard. Yeah, exactly.
I like the fact it's specifically a crooked tree.
It was specifically a crooked tree. Then we have the raids during the reign of John I. Apparently he was raided by a troubadour at one point. There was a lot more to that, but I just love that the castle was raided by a troubadour.
Again, one of my favourite words.
It is a good word. And then we get to the reign of Richard II in 1197. So at that time, a man called Thomas Woodstock was the current occupier of Pleshy Castle. And Richard II believed that Thomas was planning to overthrow him. So the king invited himself to the castle unannounced and had a nice little tea party with Thomas and his wife and kids. And then the king decided that he needed Thomas to come with him back to London to help him decide on a proposal that was put forth to him by the Dukes of York and Lancaster. So he encouraged him to ride with him, and I think they took a dozen other men or something. However, it was a trap, and Thomas was apprehended when he reached Stratford by Thomas Mowbray and Earl Marshall, who had been lying in wait, ready to catch him. Thomas called out to the king, thinking it had been a mistake, but the king just rode past, ignoring him. I know, it's pretty brutal, isn't it?
That is brutal.
That is like real Godfather stuff.
Yeah.
So Thomas was put on a ship to Calais, where he was strangled.
Sorry, it's not funny, but
It's kind of
run of bad
overkill.
luck.
I know, it's kind of overkill. And why did they strangle him? Like, they've already got him on a ship to Calais. Why did they feel the need to strangle him? Was he particularly mouthy, or was he just annoying as hell?
Him?
It doesn't say. The king apparently tried to cover this up by saying he died of apoplexy.
Oh.
So after his death, his wife Eleanor went to a nunnery for some time before returning to Pleshy Castle, where she died at the age of 33 in 1399. Before she died, however, she had her valuables, jewels, her gold, everything put into this huge trunk and thrown into the moat. Now, you can think why this might happen. Like, she's already lost her husband in such a weird and tragic way. Maybe she doesn't think the king likes her very much.
Well, you might worry, mightn't you?
Yeah. So just like the Romans, when Boudica was on the hill coming towards them, she seems to have done the same thing and decided to throw everything into a hole and hope that nobody else picks it up. However, she seems to have gone a little bit further.
Oh dear.
Local legend is that at one point a man took a team of horses and chains and tried to pull the chest up. I think this was in maybe like early 20th century this happened. They managed to find the trunk and attach the chains, but when the horses began to pull the chains, they broke and the trunk sunk back to the bottom of the moat. So they tried again and the same thing happened, and again, but the chains broke every time and the trunk sank. So it was rumoured that Eleanor had affixed the trunk to the bottom of the moat with magic and that nothing would ever pull it up again.
Oh, do you know what this reminds me of? And I'm gutted that it's not in Essex, because I bought this book because it looked really cool in a charity shop. It was called The Callow Pit Coffer. And it was about a pit, and there was treasure at the bottom of it, and it couldn't be brought up. But there was two lads who tried it, and as it came to the top, they managed to get it, and it was just coming out of the water, and they then said, not even the devil could take this off us. What do you think happened?
The devil came and took it off them, and probably their lives and souls.
Black hand came and grabbed it and pulled it back down, and
Oh,
they ran off.
God.
But yeah, there's a lot. There's quite a bit of treasure that can't be brought up. And I wonder maybe if some of it's to do with perhaps a generation thinking, oh God, us, whoever is going to go and try and look for it. Oh no, it can't be brought up. It's cursed. Please don't go and try and look for it and get drowned.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, it's like the smugglers, isn't it? They didn't want people going out looking for them, so they passed around all kinds of horror stories. So,
yep.
Right. Did you have another one, or?
I do actually have a couple.
Yes. Go for it.
Because straight after saying, "Oh, I can't find anything," I then found a couple.
It happens every time we research.
Yeah,
we start going, "Oh my God, I can't find anything," and then we just dive straight into a giant pile of them.
I mean, it's not a giant pile. I wouldn't say it's not the biggest pile we've waded through, but it's interesting.
Pleshy was the biggest pile I've waded through so far. There's so much history there. And literally everyone had the same name. I got so irritated of trying to figure out which Geoffrey was which. Too many damn Geoffreys.
There's a lot of damn Geoffreys in history in England.
Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, this is Little Thurrock. So around the villages of sort of Orsett, Tilbury, East Tilbury, Chadwell, St Mary, and Little Thurrock, there's this area of pits, very much like Grimes' graves, that had been sunk into the chalk. And there's shafts, vertical shafts that have been cut into the chalk about 30 metres deep. So, a fair size shaft.
Oh dear.
So they're known as
That's what she said.
That's what she said. They're known as Dean holes, and they would have been called Dane holes. So it's a lot of corruption. They were attributed to Vikings hiding things up to no good. It's from the notion that's where the Saxon people hid things when the Vikings came. So a lot of people hiding stuff around Essex. It must have been a very frightening time to have any treasure.
I think any time's a frightening time to have treasure. I mean,
I haven't got any treasure to be frightened of, but
everybody wants treasure.
So there's the largest concentration of them, and this is 72 of them. So there are lots of them. So it's not just one or two. Are found in Hangman's Wood. But that's where it ends. There's no, I couldn't find anything else about Hangman's Wood. Probably named because that's where they
hung people.
Yeah, and I think that's where the eeriness ends, and no doubt ghosts. But could I find ghost stories about Hangman's Wood? No, because everything kept coming up with Vange.
Good old Vange.
Good old Vange.
Good old Vange water.
Yeah. So
actually, that just reminded me a little bit of something. I was watching Mystic Britain recently. They did an episode on Sutton Hoo, not concentrating on the big burial for once. They were talking about the little sand burials, or they call them the sand bodies that can be found all around the mounds.
Oh.
And they were thought to be about maybe, I think they said something like, I'm trying to remember whether it was 300 or whether it was closer than that, years after the original burials took place.
Yeah.
But what they were people who had been executed for various crimes, and in quite horrific and horrible ways. Like, they could tell from their bodies, which were mangled, and like heads were not where they should be.
Oh.
That they'd obviously been quite horrific deaths, and they were wondering why so shortly after. This was a place of significant burials. Like, this was basically the King's Valley of England. Why it then turned into a place that had become somewhere where they executed like criminals. And what they discovered was that once Christianity had taken hold, they started to see these places, these mounds, due to some mistranslation in the Bible, as like entrances to hell.
Oh.
So they'd executed people there to sort of leave their bodies in a state of like being, next to hell. So when you
drop them off at hell's doorstep.
Yeah. So you've got to wonder how many of these like Dead Man's Lane, Hangman's Wood, things like that are near more ancient burial grounds.
Well, that makes a lot of sense and quite creepy.
Yeah.
Woods again, you see. And we need to go back to some woods because I thought we were done I didn't think we'd done and dusted, but
we'll never be done with the woods.
For a while. So these pits, I mean, we know now that they were entrances to chalk mining, or like shafts that had been dropped to try and find what was down there, flint, chalk. But there was a tradition dating back hundreds of years that these are the lost gold mines of Cymbeline, on the basis that it was believed that he had dug them either to look for gold or to hide gold, especially in Hangman's Wood area. And there was actually a letter issued by Henry IV in the 14th century to Walter Fitzwalter, commanding him, upon information of a concealed mine of gold in Essex, to apprehend all such persons as he in his judgment thinks fit, that do conceal the said mine, and to bring them before the king and his council, there to receive what shall be thought to be fit to be ordered. So it was taken very seriously, this legend.
So what was he saying there? He was saying that if somebody was trying to make away with gold from that area, that they were going to be brought before the council to be...
Yeah. Or forced to reveal the location.
Yeah. That's interesting.
So the lost mines are said to have been rediscovered in the 15th century and did work for a while, and then in the 18th century. But what is thought is that it wasn't gold, it was fool's gold, pyrite, that was found. And that's where which I actually think in some ways is prettier than gold.
Yeah, I like pyrite.
But that's what was found. And then the legend grew from there. Because when it's in the ground and it's covered in mud, it does shine very similar to gold, hence the name, fool's gold. And again, this was from good old hidden East Anglia. But the sources they used, again, add these to your list. Our favourite, the Reader's Digest, Folklore, Myths and Legends of Britain, the Dictionary of Phrase and Fable, Household Words, and Report on Dean Hole Explanation at Hangman's Wood, which I think might give us more information. I'm going to try and find that. It might be on JSTOR. I couldn't find it earlier. A little more digging. Not literally.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. And then when I was pootling about the internet, I came across something and discarded it immediately because it was Cambridgeshire. Not our turf at all. But The boundary was changed in 1990, and this little area used to be in Essex. And I'm talking about, I know, when I read that, I was like, technically it's ours. And these were the Bartlow Hills. Have you heard of the Essex Pyramids?
Yeah, I've heard something about it, but not a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those little things on the peripheral, isn't it? It's like you hear it and think, oh, store that. Have a look at it later. So there are these massive mounds. I mean, I'm talking 30 meters. Oh, the other one was 30 meters down. This is 30 meters up. And they're shaped very in a pyramid sort of shape. And I think there's only about 4 of them left now. A lot of them were ploughed down for the railway, which is such a shame, and probably not done very gently. So if there's anything in them, they've probably been lost to the machinery. And it is probably quite likely that something was in there, because in the surviving mounds that were very carefully excavated, there was found this, and this is a description of the rich grave goods that was from a high status family or group of families. So lamps of iron or bronze, and these had actually been left burning when the burial was sealed. So it was sealed with light still inside. There was also something that made me laugh, a folding chair. That's not a modern thing, apparently.
No, I was just thinking that is I think there was a folding chair in my next one as well. So they're obviously popular.
They were popular. And then the sort of like pottery and jewels and things like that. And I was thinking, oh, where are these? I bet they're in a museum. I wonder if we can see them. But they were destroyed in a fire.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I know. Let's have a look. I did write down when.
We should say that the Fenwick treasure is, you can go see that at Colchester Castle. That one's been preserved quite well.
We're not being paid by Colchester Castle to say
no,
this. We do mention them a lot. We just love them. They were taken to a house, I think it was East Lodge, and there was a fire there, and they've all been destroyed. So we've only got, I'll put some on Instagram. There's some depictions and sketches I found on the British Newspaper Archive of what was found in there, including the folding chair. I don't know why, it's really tickled me that there was an ancient folding chair in there.
The real treasure here.
The real treasure here. But there was a lovely sort of like folk tradition and tales that was passed around about the hills. Obviously, fairy stories, entrances to fairyland. You'll find this a lot with barrows and ancient burial sites. And there was a custom that originated from, when they beat the bounds of, do you know beating the bounds?
No, that's a new one on me. Is it a Welsh thing?
And yeah, it's Welsh and Cornish, and it's in Devon as well. I think it's mainly in the outside of London area. Probably would have been here it was here at one point, hence the story. But I think it's still taking place in like further afield. And it's where they go around the village would walk around the boundary, and it was sort of like claiming it back. In Margam in Wales, they used to, it pretty nasty. They would pick, and this is not my words, the local simpleton to choose the boundary. They'd literally like let him go, and wherever he walked, that was the new boundary.
Wow.
I know. So yeah, strange practice.
And now we let the Tories do it.
Yeah. Oh. And they'd also have a fair at the same time amongst the barrows. And there was an 80-year-old woman of Linton who recalled in the 1930s that the villagers were still having the fair. So it's not happening today. I think the beating the bound still happens, but these fairs don't take place anymore, which is a shame because I love a good fair. And I found this and it made me laugh that a historian once told the BBC that some unusual sexual objects were found at Bartlow Hill. But they were burnt, so we'll never know what they were.
Oh, for goodness sake. That we were talking about Ben again. We just spoke to him, so it's not like, we're obsessed, but maybe.
We want to be his friend.
But I mentioned when I worked at the museum, somebody came in with a little statue. The fines liaison officer at the time was going around going, "You'll never guess what somebody just handed me." And she was going from desk to desk, and everybody was like giggling, and she was like cracking up. And she got round to me and she showed me this little thing in a box, and it was a little I think it was maybe bronze statue of a man holding his robes up, exposing his genital area, over which a bunch of grapes had been hung. It was
That's about right.
and yeah, I just remember thinking, this was very early on when I started working there. I just remember thinking, I love working here.
Well,
there was also a time where somebody kept on moving a stuffed, what was it? It was like a little Mount Jack deer. It would turn up in various places in the building, like scratching at the door when we're coming into the office in the morning. So that is what it was like working for the museum service, and it was lovely.
Does sound quite fun, actually. Well, if you've still got an appetite for genitalia stories, I have another one for you. So I found this in Britannia, volume 34 on JSTOR, and I'm going to read it as it was in the book because it had me in tears of laughter because I've got a childish sense of humour. A Roman gold pendant found in the summer of 2000 at Braintree, Essex, takes the form of a phallus. Although many larger base metal amulets of this type are known from Roman Britain, this is the only example in gold to have been recorded from the province. And it's exceptionally small for its type. It was found by a detectorist on a building site south of Braintree. Modelling of the pendant is detailed. The glands and the opening of the urethra are clearly indicated, and the testicles represented in a somewhat stylised form as two small spheres are included. The phallus itself is unnaturally long and slender and has a distinct downward curve, as seen from the side. It is also decorated on both sides with a series of diagonal grooves along its almost entire length, 6 on the left, 7 on the right. In the hollow between the testicles, there is a deliberately textured surface that is clearly intended to represent pubic hair. It is 28 millimeters long and is 98% pure gold. It is an item of jewellery, possibly for a child, a symbol of fertility and protection against evil.
I was holding my breath through that.
I know.
Because I was like, I can't start laughing into the microphone while she's talking because people are just going to hear me breathing.
That must be the most amazing job in the world. What did you do today? Well, someone needed a description of a piece of jewellery. Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just checking my battery.
There's not enough pubic hair detail on jewellery these days. I mean, that's a lost art.
It is. Oh gosh. Another castle story. Mm-hmm. When they were going through refurbishment, I was working with the conservation team, and they'd hand you what you were cleaning or what you were conserving that day. And I came in one day and I was handed a little tiny pot covered in phalluses.
Nice.
It's quite well known, little tiny pot covered in phalluses. I think you can actually what do they call it? Adopt a object scheme. I think that's one of the objects you can adopt now. But so the conservator came over to me whilst I was cleaning it up, and he was like, "Oh, you need to rub it a bit harder than that. Come on, give it a good rub."
Oh no.
And he was not the sort of person who would make those kind of jokes. He was just being dead serious, but it made it even worse for me because I was beside myself cracking up.
Oh, well, I thought that was a good one to end on.
Yes, it was. Literally in tears from that very detailed description.
I know, it's so detailed, but so lovingly done. It was like, this is an exquisite piece of jewellery. And it sounds it. And I have a picture of it and a sketch.
Yes.
That I will put on our Instagram. I don't think I need to put a warning thing on it, do I?
Maybe.
It's just a little willy.
Instagram is very
anti-willy.
Oh, that's the very anti-nudity of any kind.
But you wouldn't look at it and think it's tiny. It's about that big. I'm surprised anyone found it.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. If you're listening to this now and you'd like to go to the Eerie Essex Instagram and see whether we've been banned, please do so.
What a thing to be banned on, a 28 millimeter willy.
You know, one of our friends has been banned repeatedly for her artwork.
Of course.
One of our friends does very risque collages,
They are cool.
They're
They are
really
really
good.
lovely.
Yeah.
I really like them.
Let's give her a shout out. Amy Turnbull. Please look her up. She makes these fantastic collages, and they're extremely naughty.
Not for the faint of heart.
This is about as much as we can say on a podcast that we've put as a clean podcast. But
yeah, we haven't ticked the explicit content box, so don't go into too much detail.
Yeah, but her collages have been. She's lost her account about 4 times, so please go and support her.
Yeah. Oh, there was a little something. It's nothing to do with Essex at all, but it was countrywide, because I was doing this research and I was thinking, oh, I'd love to go on a treasure hunt. I wish there was like proper sort of like national treasure, sort of following clues and everything. Have you ever heard of the book Masquerade by Kit Williams?
No. Anyone on me?
I hadn't heard of it until a friend of mine, Rebecca Glover, who I went to uni with, told me about it. And it's part of a series that it's a genre known today as armchair treasure hunts, which I didn't know was a thing. I knew there was this book. I didn't know it was a whole genre. But it's this amazing book with beautiful illustrations. It just looks like a picture book. I'll put some of the images up on our Instagram for you to see. But on the back cover was this absolutely gorgeous hair that the author, Kit Williams, had made. And it was out of precious metals and jewels and this really sort of stylized design. And he buried it somewhere in Britain.
So it could be in Essex.
It wasn't. It's been found.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to burst that bubble. But yeah, it could have been at the time. It could have been anywhere. And on each of the pages, there was a clue as to where to find it and where to start and to what to look out for. I won't tell you what the solution is, because I found it fun to get the book and try and figure it out myself. I didn't get very far. But and I had to look up what it was. But it's just worth looking at for the really beautiful illustrations in it. And I just thought, why aren't there more things like this? Why somebody out there, a writer who maybe has a friend who does makes things, precious metals, please start this up again. I'd love it. How cool would that be?
That'd be great. Wasn't there a case in America like that as well, where somebody had buried treasure or buried stolen money, and everybody went looking for it?
Oh, crumbs, yeah. I was looking at the newspaper reports. People were trespassing in people's gardens thinking they knew where it was and was digging. And it's all the world over. People came to Britain from the Australia, South Africa, West Germany, Japan. The book was released over there. It was a massive thing, but it's not very well known even now.
So who found it? And no, we can't say where it was found, can we? Because that would ruin it.
I won't say where it was found, but there was actually a bit of argy-margy about who found it, because they knew a friend of Kit Williams.
Oh no.
And they had insider knowledge. And so they were very quickly sort of discarded as the true finder. And it was 2 lecturers who in the end were awarded the title of the finders. But I don't know what's happened to the hare, sorry.
So that's disappointing.
No. If anyone knows, let us know. But there you go. Thought we'd end on that.
Well, I've got one last little story.
Oh,
it's not a huge one, so don't worry, I'm not going to take up too much more time. So Colchester is a very interesting place, and it's got lots of range, let's say. And Lexton is where I'm trying to think of a good way of saying this, where some of the rich folk live. Where the rich folk live, really. It's full of grand houses and
that's beautiful.
Massive schools that the uber rich send their kids to. I mean, we're not uber rich, but my brother went to the grammar school there, and it was basically like going to Hogwarts. I was very jealous at the time. So it should come as no surprise that a king was buried there in the pre-Roman period, a king adorned in golden armor, as the legend goes. The burial mound is in a private garden. You can find the location online, but since it's private, I'm not going to disclose it here. Plus, it was excavated in 1924 when the houses were built. So anything that was there is long gone. So please do not go into anyone's gardens looking for this golden king, please. prior to its excavation, the mound appeared to be circular with a maximum height of 9 foot and a diameter of about 100 feet. So it was massive. Archaeologists discovered that the mound was a late Iron Age burial. The burial mound was excavated under the supervision of local surgeon Philip Laver and his brother Edward Laver, and it produced remarkable archaeological finds, including treasure. The burial within the mound was dated to around 15 to 10 BC, and it was thought to have been the grave of a British king. There's some discussion about which king it was. Some say it's, I'm going to mispronounce all of these names now because they're really complicated. Some said it was Canublin. Some said it was Adedomarus. Others think it may have been Canublin's father, Tassiv. Oh God, this is a difficult one.
You've really not been kind to yourself here.
No, Tassiovanus. Please don't come after me. But the burial goods included bronze artifacts such as a little table and pedestal, a statue of Cupid, figurines of a bull, a boar, and a griffin. There was a silver medallion and the head of the Emperor Augustus made from a Roman denare. Iron armor and chainmail was decorated in gold and silver. So this is where the golden armored king came from. There was also a bed and 17 imported Roman amphoras, which were probably buried containing wine to accompany the deceased into the afterlife.
But Elsa, did they have a folding chair?
Yes, there was. I think it was a folding table in this case.
They had a trestle table.
They had a trestle table to put the buffet on.
Ah, see.
But I like that there was like this legend of the Golden King buried in Colchester.
Yeah, it's a good story. Almost like the Glass Knight.
Oh, the Glass Knight. That was Saffron Walden.
Yeah, in Essex, we do like to have bling on our armour.
We like bling, full stop.
Bling, bling, bling. Do you want to do any shout outs to any podcasts or anything you're listening to at the moment?
I will do a recommended watching. I recommend everybody watch Red Rose on BBC.
Oh my goodness, yes, that's so good.
It's very like Black Mirror meets The Craft meets, I don't know. It's
like a modern, it's like an urban legendy sort of, not analog horror, because analog horror is videotape, isn't it? It's sort of tech horror.
Yeah, it's tech horror, but it's also got that sort of
the Ring feel to it. You're being
the
watched.
Ring feel, yeah.
There's like no barrier between you and the telly or the phone. It's I think that's what's scariest about the Ring. There's like, oh, it's in the telly. Oh, it's coming out of the telly.
I turned my television round after watching the Ring for the first time when I was a teenager.
I wanted to give a shout out to the Appalachian Folklore podcast because I want to be their friend. And they've said even I'll read out the one that really like made my heart melt. Currently binge listening to Eerie Essex. I'd already thought I could have had a good conversation with these ladies, but once Helia was mentioned, now I could talk to them for hours. An amazing show, absolutely worth a binge listen. And oh my goodness, we could talk to you for hours too, because we're always on about Appalachian folklore and Helia. So yeah, if we're listening, if you want to have a Zoom and a chat, yeah, we'd love to talk to you, because I know there's a lot of links between British folklore and Welsh folklore. I know there's a lot of Welsh folklore in
a lot of
Appalachia.
People migrated obviously and took their beliefs with them, which is why one of the reasons we wanted to do an Eerie Essex worldwide, to see what from Essex had kind of made it out into other cultures. But obviously we wanted to cover it sensitively, so we didn't, because obviously there is a lot of issues with how colonization.
And basically the British being pretty
dicks.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, it'd just be nice to look at the similarities as well, because you do see a lot of similarities, not just like blending of folklore, but how completely different folklore from different parts of the world share. They might be called something different, but the descriptions, like take black dogs. Find them everywhere. Red eyes always. So, little things like that is very fascinating. So, yeah, we'd like to talk to you too. A potential friendship across the pond. Oh, another podcast as well. I can't remember if we have done a shout out to them before, but we'll do it again. Why not? Astonishing Legends. And it's one of those podcasts. There's a lot of them that do it, and it's lovely when you listen to them. You know, when you feel like you sat down with friends and you're overhearing a conversation of friends talking about stuff they really like. It's not heavy, but it's well researched, which is what we're kind of aiming for. Don't know if we do it, but it's that sort of feeling. It's like, Forrest and that are sitting down and talking again. Yay. So it's goodbye from Elsa.
And it's goodbye from Bethan. Bye.
If you'd like to get in contact with us with a story of your own or any more information about what we've discussed in this episode, you can reach us at eerieessexpodcast@gmail.com.
Or if you'd like to contact us on social media, you can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram under the handle Eerie Essex. On Twitter, we are under Eerie_Essex. You can also find us on Patreon and Ko-fi if you'd like to support the podcast.